So I am back. It's been the best part of 3 months, and today I'm going to go through the inflation release, as well as talk about why I think the Bank of England and probably the new Labour government are about to balls it all up. So first off, I do apologise for being away. It's been extremely busy in Stuart HQ, and I want to just give you a quick overview for those of my regular viewers, why I've not been regular recently, why I've not been live recently, and what I'm going to do to change that and go forward. So it's been the best part of 3 months. I've been buying properties, converting properties, renovating properties, writing the book. In fact, before go any further, the book is out. There's a link to the comment. You can get a free copy. Just pay for the postage and packaging if you're interested in property unicorns. But business has kind of taken over, okay? And I haven't had the capacity to go live on a regular basis and talk about all the things that we usually talk about on this channel, which is effectively what is going on a macro economic level, so we can make better decisions as property professionals, property investors, or even homeowners. So things have calmed down a little bit, so I'm re-engaging and commit to the following. Number one, I'm going to be going live more regularly, but they're going to be shorter. They're going to be single topic videos. So rather than talk about lots of things at once, small, short videos, single topic, and we can do more of those on a regular basis, so more regular. And it's going to be a mix of, and I'm going to sort of build some more stuff in, the regular narrative we have on the housing market, the economy as a whole. We're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to be putting in a little bit more about property strategy. So property strategies, teachings, trainings, all of that sort of good stuff. But look, this is what I've been working on over the last 3 months. We have completed the conversion of this in the middle of Chester. This is now multiple Airbnb unit, and we have the restaurant fully leased out, converted and operating. We completed on the purchase of this. This is a block of 7 flats in Chester, which again, we are in the process of converting into an Airbnb unit. We just completed on this, which is in Wrexham. This is a commercial building, which we are putting planning in for a mixed use scheme with an HMO. And we've got another one under legals at the moment that we're hoping to exchange on in the next few weeks, which will be a commercial conversion into an apart hotel model in Chester. So as you can see, we have been busy, okay? And I firmly believe for those of you who are in the investment community that now is a fantastic time to be getting involved in investing if you know how to do it in the right way, okay? So there are certain strategies that I teach that are working right now, lots that are not working. And ultimately, anything where we can manipulate the commercial valuation methodology or equation, which I'll talk about in another video, is where we're going to be making our money, profit, and opportunity over the next few years. But as I said, we're not going to be going too detailed into all these different things on a video by video basis. So let's dive in to what we want to talk about today, which is the June inflation release. And as we go through here, please do put your comments in. Let me know your thoughts, what you're seeing out there in the market as well, and what you feel or you've seen in the inflation figures. Okay, so let's dive straight into it. If we go onto the heads down, we can see here, if we look at this bottom line, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Oh, I don't think you can see the cursor. The bottom line shows our CPI 12-month rate is 2%, so bang on target for the second month in a row. We've gone 2.3, 2 and 2%. Now CPIH is sitting slightly higher at 2.8%. So, and that stayed the same month on month 2. So we've gone 3, 2.8, 2.8. So we have hit our target and maintained our target, which is great news. Now, of course, this means or should mean that interest rates should be about to go down. Of course, you know, the Bank of England say when we hit target, well, actually they said we could put rates down before we hit target, but now we're hitting target and maintaining target. Are we going to see a rate drop in August? I'm going to talk you through my thoughts about why I believe we won't in August just in a sec. So let's dive into some more of the detail on this report. And something to see here, let me just see if I can just make this a little bit bigger actually for you, because I can see the bottom of my screen. Don't worry about it actually. If I just do that, there we go. That looks a little bit better. We can see the CPI and the CPIH. Don't forget CPIH includes the housing element. Very important that we talk about this as property investors. We can see that continued drop. However, this line here, this top line is the OOH. This is owner-occupier housing cost. Now you can see this continues to go up. So CPIH, which includes these elements, are always going to be higher than the CPI. And a lot of commentators say, right, housing costs are still going to go up. Or housing costs are going up. This is an issue, and this is something that's going into the mix of persistent sort of core inflation in there. Look, here's my thoughts on it. CPIH, or sorry, OOH, if we read the terminology and the methodology that's used to calculate the OOH, which is the owner-occupier housing cost, uses something called the rental equivalency value. And effectively what this means, it compares housing cost to somebody who owns a house for the equivalent house if you were renting it. Okay, that's really important, because if that is how OOH is calculated, rental equivalency value, then we are still seeing large increases in rental valuations. Why are we seeing large increases in rent rises? Because something that is still filtering through into the system with a huge amount of lag are interest rates. Okay, so if we go and have a look at this graph, we can see that there's a massive lag in the system, and it follows that the cost of housing and the cost of renting, which are going to be proportional to interest rates, because as landlords have to pay higher sort of costs for their finance, they're going to pass that on to the tenants. Rents are going to go up, costs of living, everything gets more expensive. That gets passed down to the tenants. Now, we can't pass that down immediately. So at the end of a tenancy, it could be a 6 month, 12 months, even longer. And a lot of landlords won't put rents up to tenants when they're in situ. So there's a huge amount of lag in this system. So actually, the only thing that's going to get this OOH down and the rental inflation down is by interest rates coming down. So people saying we should be, keeping interest rates high, right, to take out some of this persistent inflation. Actually, for me personally, it's the other way around. We need to be reducing interest rates, which will then have probably a 12, 18, 24 month lag period to see these costs come down as well. So that's the first thing to comment on the release. Let's look at some other graphs, right? Let's have a look at this one. In fact, let's have a look at this one, because one of the headline figures, okay, of contributors to this month's inflation is restaurants and hotels. Okay, so we've had a tick up for restaurants and hotels. Now, why would restaurants and hotels be ticking up? The main costs that hospitality are going to have are going to be their rent or their finance costs and their wage bills. Okay, so again, the same argument for rent and finance costs goes as the same argument OOH, that high interest rates are creating this higher rent or this higher rental inflation, higher finance cost of finance. And also, we've just seen a large, in the April budget, a large increase in minimum wage. Now, that big increase in minimum wage is probably going to be felt most by hospitality and restaurants, because there's going to be a lot of employees there that are on lower wage demographics or minimum wage. So that is going to have to be passed on to the consumer. So that's a one-off event that probably, let's see what the Labour government do with min wage, and this is going to be something over the next year or so that we should be looking at with interest, is what does the Labour government do with workers' rights? What does the Labour government do with sort of minimum wage? Is it going to go up? Because if it does, that could feed back into this inflation picture, right? So that's what explains that away. Let's go down now again to the main one. Well, in fact, here we go. Here are the main contributors to the CPIH figure. So you can see the main one is restaurants and hotels. We've then got transport, which is primarily the service and the sale of secondhand cars. There's a supply-demand issue there. And then after that, the next two are housing and household services, of which owner-occupier housing costs, right? So we've talked about how much of that is probably due to interest rates. So really, those positive increases to inflation, i.e. things that are making it higher, right, are probably none of them are to do, well, inversely related to interest rates being high. But really, keeping interest rates high are not going to get any of those things down in a pure form. That's my belief. And then finally on this, let's have a look at the contribution to owner-occupier housing costs. So again, if I just zoom in on that, and we have a look at this graph, we're still seeing a negative year-on-year contribution for the energy costs, which would be expected. And this, of course, is one of the worries that we might have with inflation coming back, is as this falls out in the next 6 to 12 months, we might see an uptick in inflation. But really, the majority of this, you can see the burgundy is the OOH, and then the green is rental value, which again, both will be going up because interest rates are high. Okay, so that is where we are in terms of this CPIH release. What does this mean for interest rates? Now, the next MPC meeting is 1st of August, which is a couple of weeks away. So if you remember beginning of this year, the consensus was 4 to 6 rate drops in 2024. Okay, we're coming to August, where the market had been betting on a 50-50 of the first rate drop in August, but I think now that's significantly reduced. And I believe, personally, that they won't drop it in August. I think they'll hold it, and this is why. And by the way, which is why I think they are incorrect to do that as well. So let's just go through all those bits. Okay, let's just summarize. So key things that are contributing up to inflation at the moment: OOH and rental values, right? Huge. This is because there's a huge lag in the system. Shelter is always going to have a huge lag in the system because of how ASTs and tenancies work. Okay, so keeping interest rates high are not going to get rid of that element of inflation, right? Getting it down, we'll start to see it come down, but again, probably in 12, 18, 24 months' time. Everybody is talking about services inflation being the main contributor, and services are things like restaurants, they're things like healthcare, there's things like education, right? Things that people have to use to live. Now, when you analyze services inflation, I'm going to do this on a separate video, there is a historical trend that services inflation is always around about 2% higher than goods inflation. Okay, so the fact we're seeing a higher services inflation compared to, well, we're actually kind of in actually goods deflation right now when you look at the pure data, is normal trend. And that is primarily put down to poor productivity growth in our workforce, right? And this is a European thing. When you actually analyze it, supply demand, because of poor productivity, okay, there's not enough supply for the demand out there. You know, population growth, population's getting older, which then lead to elder demographics using more services. That creates supply-demand imbalance, therefore rises the price of services. Now, this is historical. This has been in place for the last 30, 40 years. So it's not just something that we're seeing right now. So when the banks say they're looking at the data and still worried about the services inflation, which is the main mechanism or the main reason they're saying they will not drop interest rates in August, I think that's a fallacy, right? I think this is that's the wrong thing to be looking at. And then we look at hospitality, as I said, you're looking at things that are driving hospitality are the cost of finance for people who have mortgages. And again, there's going to be a massive lag in that as people come off fixed rate mortgages, although it's probably more commercial. Rent, if they're paying rent, that's going to be going up because the landlords are paying more. Minimum wage has gone up in April, right? And again, all of these things to get that down probably needs a reduction in interest rates. So this is the case that the bank are going to make for not loosening the policy. Number one, I said services inflation. Number two, right, they're going to talk about May GDP figures, which were higher than expected. May GDP, we'll do a separate video on 0.4%, about twice what the economists were predicting. However, we should not look at a month in itself. We need to smooth that line out. For example, in May, there was a big increase in May in the construction sector, and I saw the headline saying construction, booms at its highest rate for the last 2 years or 2.5 years. I can't remember what it was, right? But when you go back to April, April had a massive drop in construction output, mainly because of weather. Okay. By the way, I'm in construction. It's really tough right now. I'm seeing lots of businesses, main contractors go under. Pretty much everybody stopped work when the election was called. So that's probably end of May into June. So I would expect construction is going to see a pretty poor June, and June's been wet as well. Just because you've had one spike in a month, you need to look at the rolling. And the rolling 3 months for construction are actually negative 0.7%. We'll look at that in a different video. So, however, they will be using May GDP figures saying, look, things are quite hot, right? Okay, but from what level? And then wage growth is the other thing they're always talking about. Wage growth is high. Okay, so look, when you look at the percentages, wage growth is high, but again, you look at the graph and it's coming down and the trends are down. Don't forget the wage growth is the average of somebody who is actually working. So it looks at the total wages paid in the country divided by the total workers. Completely ignores the fact that loads of people could be unemployed, loads of people could be long-term inactive, and these things need to factor in. So again, we've got a supply-demand issue. We've got not enough people for the jobs. That's going to force wage increases, right, to get the right talent into the jobs. But it completely papers over the cracks of the economy as a whole, with businesses in trouble, more people unemployed, and the unemployment rate has ticked up again. And so therefore, when you look macroeconomically at the economy, just because the small amount of workforce is getting paid more doesn't mean the economy is healthy. That's my personal view, right? Here, I believe is the case for interest rates coming down. CPI has hit target. They've said 2% target. We've hit 2%. We've maintained it 2 months in a row. You can't just hit target and then say, actually, we're not going to drop it now because services inflation is high. CPI is a measure of total goods and services, right? And construction when you put it all into it like that. But goods and services, it's hit target. Goods are deflating, services a little bit higher, but we're meaning where it should be. There is a huge lag effect here, up and down. So any interest rates drops now are not going to be felt for 12 to 18 months. So we have to look at the trends. I get, and I would believe the argument more with interest rates about the worry about a second inflation spike in sort of 6 months' time when utilities potentially go up again. However, right, we are still feeling the effect probably of some of the last interest rate rises into the economy. And we're not even in Table Mountain, right, in terms of feeling the effect. So that lag effect is so huge. Why are we not dropping it now? Unemployment up, insolvency is high. Company insolvencies are high, right? There's a lot of companies going bust right now. And here's the big thing for me: when you look at it, GDP per capita is going down. So actually, we're super low. Our productivity is dropping. We're having big population increase. People are getting less productive, and look, the Labour government are talking about getting Britain to be more productive again, right? It's going to be difficult to do when we're sitting at high interest rates with a lot of people servicing a lot of debt, a lot of cost of living issues, and let's face it, probably going to be wound up in a lot more red tape. I've seen already some of the things coming out from this Labour government. I'm not political here, but some of the policies about, for example, employers not being able to message people outside of 9 to 5, right? All this is going to do is stifle productivity, stifle innovation. It's going to create sluggishness, and we're going to get more layers of red tape all the way through this. Okay, so that is not going to help things very much. I can see that policy after policy is going to come out where we're going to stifle innovation. So my view is I think the Bank of England will make a mistake and they will hold it. I think the Labour government is going to put policies in place which are going to stifle productivity, and that could, in effect, really sort of feed back into inflation over the next 3 to 5 years. We'll see. Let's not go into that now. So I think the Bank of England will bottle it. I think they'll hold it, and then we'll have to wait until the autumn to see what happens. That's my view on the inflation release. Okay. Any questions? If anybody's got any points or questions on it, please put those in the comments. I'll always reply to them. If you're new to the channel, right, I want to talk about these things to give us that crystal ball. I think it's really important to have that crystal ball to be able to make good investment decisions. What I don't see, well, by the way, let's always look at where the pros and cons are. If interest rates stay high, it's going to maintain the buyer's environment we are in for property investments, the right sort of investments. I'm not talking about vanilla residential investments here. I'm talking about anything with a commercial valuation methodology. Look, if you want to find out more about it, go to the description of this video. There is a link to the book. You can get a free copy. I bought them all for you. All you got to do is pay £4.97 for the postage and packaging for me to get it to your door. And there's about £300 worth of digital downloads that I'm giving away with that book as well. So please get into that description, find the link, and get that copy of the book. It's been a pleasure. Lovely to see everybody again. As I said, we're going to be going back to more regular content, various different things, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Have a good one, too. For those of you who are regulars, you'll know that